Hi, everybody. Okay, here's what we're talking about today. Let me let Facebook catch up. so, now we're live on Facebook, I think. Looks like it. So, I've had no internet for 48 hours, which is so fun, right? How do we live in 2020 during a pandemic when we're constantly on our phones and computers and we have an online business? How do we live without internet? So I'm borrowing my husband's hotspot, which he pretends like he's okay with, but he doesn't really like. And I'm like, dude, I will pay you. I'll pay you for the hotspot. But I have a hotspot coming tomorrow just in case. I won't find myself in this position again. Hey, everybody. Hey, Gina. Oh, I love Gina's artwork. Y'all know Gina. So here we go. Here's what we're talking about today. We're talking about time. How many of you feel like you're always behind, that there's never enough time, that you wish you had more? Gina says, hey, or yes. Maybe she says me. I see lots of hearts happening on Instagram. Like, yes, 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 right? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, time is a mental construct, believe it or not. We think it's this thing outside of us, right? I always am like, when I'm coaching people on time. Yeah, Jessica says me. When I'm coaching people on time, I'm like, there's not this like council of people sitting off on a hill somewhere that are the time judges, like the Supreme Court. Speaking of, I got my bun on and my black on today, in honor of RBG, but there is not a council of time. There's not a Supreme Court of time sitting on a hill somewhere, like running time, measuring time, deciding what time looks like for us. We are actually in charge, believe it or not, of our own time. It's kind of shocking, right? And we're in charge of our schedule. Yeah, we get to decide. And we're going to talk about that today because it's a huge issue for so many people. And it was a huge issue for me for years and years and years until I decided to take charge of my time. So here's what that looked like. I mean, for years was always behind, always overwhelmed, right? Overwhelmed. There's never enough. I need more time. My story was always too many things to do and not enough time to do them in. And it was believable. It sounded so true, right? How many of you believe those stories that you tell yourself about time? Probably all of you, right? That's one of the problems. We believe our own thoughts, but our own thoughts are not the truth. They're not circumstances. They're just things we're thinking, and we wreak havoc on ourselves and we create suffering all the time. And with time, scarcity around time, is one of the places we create the most suffering. And what is scarcity? Scarcity is anytime we think that there is lack, that there's not enough of something. And so here's what we do. We create these ridiculous, unrealistic expectations or schedules. We set ourselves up for failure. We pretend like we can do 40 hours of work in 5 or 6 hours a day, which is maybe the amount of uninterrupted time that we actually get in a day. And we just don't understand why we always come out on the losing end. And that was me. That was my story. There's not enough time. This is miserable. I can never get to everything. I'm losing. I would wake up every morning. Say yes or wave at me or give me a heart on Instagram if you have felt this way. I did it for years. Wake up every day, sometimes in the middle of the night, actually, which was the most uncomfortable part. Already behind. I'm like, it's 6 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever time I was getting up that day. And my brain was saying, you're already behind. You've got to literally hit the ground running. And how fun is that? How fun is it to start your day in total fight or flight, total panic? Martha says me. Like, how fun is that? It's not fun at all. And we wonder why our health suffers. We wonder why it's hard to run a business and stay calm or be nice to our families or be nice to our clients or not have total meltdowns. And it's all the story that we're weaving, this narrative that we're weaving in our heads about time. So that was me for years. The other part of me for years was I'm a creative. I'm a creative. We don't do schedules. We don't now, and I'm not, y'all know me. I'm like right brain, left brain. I've got an accounting degree, but there was still some part of me that did not want to be wrangled, as I called it. You won't control me. I had team members who were like, let me keep your schedule. I was like, nope, hell no, get off of me. Don't touch my schedule. You will not decide. And it was a fear of them committing to something that I was going to later wish I wasn't committed to, right? But the funny thing was, I was committing to stuff all the time that I wish I wasn't committed to because I couldn't be trusted with my own schedule to say no to people or to things that I didn't have time to do, to show up for. I didn't want to even. So for years, time was my nemesis. A calendar, other than the pretty calendar, the pretty write, spend an afternoon in creative land writing pretty calendars and stickers and things, that all day long. But that, let's be clear, for a lot of us is not really a calendar. We map it out once. By day 2, we're already not following it. And if we've written it in anything but pencil, we can't erase it. And then those of us who like pretty things are for sure not going to be marking through it and scratching it out and making it look ugly. So by like day 3, maybe day 7, after planning, that thing is obsolete and we're like, I'll start again next month. Okay, not working. But I was not believing that I could use a digital calendar. I didn't want to. I'm like, I'm not that kind of person. I have to write things out, all the stories. And there were tons and tons and tons of stories, which is so funny because when I coach people now and you hear all the stories, all the reasons this won't work for me, I'm the exception. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not wired that way. I need to be spontaneous. Like, there's so many of those stories, y'all. And when I hear them now from other people, I'm like, I'm not judging because I'm like, I was there, but I'm noticing that the laundry list of thoughts that keep people from committing to a schedule, right? And so they don't believe that there's a solution. And if you don't believe there's a solution, guess what? You're going to be right every single time. There's not going to be a solution, period. Okay, so let's get into this a little bit. Because if time is your nemesis, even occasionally, this is really important, okay? So it's not just about productivity, because it could be. If you're a person who's not getting a lot done, if you're not showing up for yourself, if you feel like you're not creating results you want, that's one kind of way this can work. And we all have that sometimes. We're procrastinating sometimes. And then there's the flip side for people like type A, like me, and I know a lot of you are like that, where I'm getting stuff done all day long, like tons of stuff. But like I'm white knuckling it, I'm suffering through it, I'm telling this negative story about it, or I used to be anyway. And it's creating misery all day. And that is not a way to live. And so when I woke up to the fact that I was the gatekeeper of my schedule, I was the person creating the misery by either putting a lot of unrealistic stuff on the calendar and unrealistic expectations, or the flip side, not using a calendar at all, because those were kind of my two places to show up. How about you guys? Are you like me, or like I've been in the past a lot, all or nothing? Okay, well, I was all or nothing with time. Either the most rigid, unrealistic schedule you've ever seen, or no schedule at all, neither of which work. But that's where I was, and that's probably where you were, or maybe are today, and that creates so much suffering. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes because I want to make sure we think about this. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, sadly and wonderfully, the problem is always us, which really means the problem is always our thinking. The problem is always the way we're thinking. Because you've heard me talk about this before, but thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions or inactions like procrastination, and our actions create the results we're getting. And so if the result you're getting is at the end of a day, your to-do list is not only not shorter, but it's longer, and you're exhausted and you're in a terrible mood, that is all coming from the way you're thinking about time. Okay? So let's think about this for a minute. Let's think about our thoughts. This is kind of a weird thing to do. When you're the watcher of your thoughts, it's kind of like an out of body experience, right? Like you're standing on the outside looking in at your thoughts. So that's what we want to do. We want to watch our thoughts and just see what they are. Because when we're not adept at watching our thoughts, we're just at the mercy of our thoughts. We're believing especially the negative ones. And y'all, 15,000 minimum a day, they say, go through our head. We seem to latch on to like the same 10 or 20 habitual negative thoughts every day, right? Especially in different categories, like about time. I was believing the same thing all the time, and I would say it. I'd be like, yes, I have no time. I'm always behind. And I could always find confirmation of that. That's called confirmation bias, right? You go out looking for to be confirmed in your negativity. You can find it every single time. Okay, so thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions, actions create results. So think about this. If we're watching our thoughts to be curious of, I wonder what I'm thinking about time, and we notice we're thinking the thought, there's never enough time, what feeling are we creating from the thought, there's never enough time? And it's going to be different for everybody, but it's going to probably be somewhere similar in the realm of something negative. Like for me, it was always overwhelm, always overwhelm. So there's never enough time was my thought. And really a lot of times my particular thought was, as I told you before, I've got too much to do and not enough time to do it, which is very similar to there's not enough time or never enough time. Every time, overwhelm. So what happens to you when you feel overwhelmed? Because I know what happens to me. When I feel overwhelmed, do I get super busy and knock stuff off my list or constrain or go back and say no or uncommit? No, never. That's not what I do when I'm feeling overwhelmed. What do I do when I feel overwhelmed? I usually do one of a few things. I usually either eat, maybe you drink wine, have a meltdown, like complain, possibly cry, just have a fit, tantrum, or just literally go, forget it. I'm tired. I'm not even doing this today. And then I'm like in my favorite spot on my bed, either with my laptop scrolling Instagram or watching Netflix or something. But I'm definitely not making the most of my time. I'm definitely not knocking stuff off my to-do list, for sure. Which is the whole point of what we're trying to do when we're like, I've got all this stuff to do. So when you think a negative, oh, look, I didn't turn off my notifications. So we got a lovely chime there. Okay. So when you think there's never enough time, if you also feel overwhelmed or something negative, pretty sure your action is not going to be moving you in the direction of a solution to your time worries. It never is, because we don't create positive actions out of a negative feeling. Okay. So then our result, ironically or not, not surprisingly, let's really say that probably, our result is what? Never enough time. I feel overwhelmed, procrastinate and watch Netflix. Did I get anything to do off my to-do list? No. The result is more than ever to do, which proves my point that there's never enough time. And I believe it because that's my confirmation bias, my result. But I created that result with my thinking. I did. And here's how I want you to know that you did that, because here's the opposite, which is also available to us at any time. We could look at the to-do list. We could notice the thought, there's never enough time. And then we could interrupt that thought pattern and say, that's ridiculous, Toby. That's silly. Or that's untrue. Of course there's enough time. I'm in charge of my time. Whatever thought you want to think, there's plenty of time to do what really matters. You have the option of thinking a thought like that. And when you think that thought, when you think there's plenty of time, are you in overwhelm? No. You're relaxed, or you're just like at the worst, just kind of neutral. There's plenty of time. Okay. Or there's plenty of time, big deep breath, but you create a completely different result, right? Because you don't then Probably just goof off. You might, if you think there's plenty of time. You're like, there's plenty of time to watch Netflix. Maybe. But a lot of times when we're like, you know what, there's plenty of time to get this stuff done today. That's a good thought. You would stay relaxed and you would probably just start working on the next thing on your list. Not frantic, not quitting, not telling this negative story, narrative that you're weaving, this dramatic story. Most likely you're going to create a more positive result with that kind of thinking. So our T's, our T as in thoughts, our T's, as I say, always create our F's, A's, and R's. Our thoughts always create our feelings, which create our actions, which create our results. Yet we're going through life all the time not managing our thinking, especially about time. We believe certain things. In Design You this month in my coaching program, it's all about beliefs. And we have some pretty hard beliefs about time, right? So, what do we do about it? Well, one of the things you can start to do is notice the time wasters, which are going to be your actions. So, you might not notice you're thinking negative things. You might not even notice you're feeling, you maybe do, of overwhelm or fear or something, anger, whatever it is. But you probably will notice your actions a lot of times if you start to pay a little bit of attention. So, what are the biggest time wasting actions that can show you that you're thinking something that's not serving you about time? Well, gossiping, complaining, buffering. So, what's buffering? That's any kind of like numbing out, which is like a procrastination tactic. So buffering might be shopping, it might be drinking, it might be eating, it might be watching Netflix, it might be scrolling Instagram, anything that is making you feel good in the moment, giving you that little chemical hit of dopamine to be like, now I'm relaxed. I don't have to do my to-do list. I don't have to think about time. That's buffering. Second guessing is a huge time waster. How many of you don't make just solid committed decisions, but you're like, I might not. Somebody asked me to do something. I feel guilty. I should say yes. Maybe I don't know. I don't really want to. That is a huge waster of time in and of itself. So being decisive, which we'll talk about in a second, is a huge solution to your time wasting. But yeah, anytime you're gossiping, second guessing, complaining, buffering, or just being dramatic in your own mind about weaving this story, when you start hearing yourself, and I used to get tired of my stories. Do y'all get tired of your stories? I get tired of my stories a lot of times where I'm like, here we go again. The story about how Toby's such the victim of time and there's never enough of it. I mean, I would literally get to the point where I was like, gag. Do I have to hear this story again, this pity party again, Toby, about how you never have enough time? So that was a huge time waster as well. And a lot of us do that and we don't even know it because we haven't practiced managing our minds. So we're constantly weaving these dramatic stories day after day about time and everything else too. Okay, so time wasters, gossiping, complaining, second guessing, buffering, drama, creating stories. There's some other ones, procrastinating, which is kind of all of those things. Huge time wasters that you might start to notice and think, I'm doing that thing again where I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I wonder what I'm thinking and feeling that's causing me to show up in this way, y'all. And it's really important that you start to understand this. Okay, so we do have a whole month on beliefs right now in Design You. If you want to get in there and work on your beliefs, we also have a whole month on time management and time blocking. And I teach this very specific way of managing your time that's so important. And so here's one of the problems. I mentioned this earlier. So those of us, especially those of us who are creatives, don't want to feel like we're boxed in or that we're controlled. We want to kind of feel like we have some spontaneity, right? The problem is not managing your time and not using a schedule feels like spontaneity in the moment, but it's really not. Because how spontaneous can you be when you haven't managed your time at all and you're constantly leaving yourself with so much to do and so many deadlines that you're like staying up at night the night before and you're like so mad at yourself and you're trying to crank things out, or just the fact that you never get to relax because you're always worrying. Even if you're not doing anything, you're always worrying about time and your deadlines and your to-do list. Okay, that's not spontaneous. It feels that way in our heads like it would be. It's the opposite. So having a certain specific kind of scheduling that I teach, which is called zero balance time blocking, concept I created, that gives you the ultimate freedom. Because in the way I teach you to manage your time, literally all 24 hours of the day, you're making sure stuff is in there, like watching Netflix with your family, dinner with your kids, working out, and getting your work done. But it also requires you to really notice how much you're um, using some of the time wasters, and that you're not really making decisions that help you be successful with time. So let me tell you what a few of those are, okay? So one of the problems, we don't want to have a schedule, or if we do, the that's the nothing side. The all side is if we do create a schedule, we create the most unrealistic schedule you've ever seen, right? How many of you do that? You're like, I'm going to get organized. And then you put literally back to back to back to back to back meetings all day, every day. And it's like, I'm going to have an accounting meeting with my accountant, and then I'm going to go right into designing for 4 hours, and then I'm going to go live on Instagram, and then I'm going to teach a course, and then I'm going to call and have a meeting with the client. Like, how? No, that's not possible. That's miserable. You're exhausted, and of course when the day comes, or even in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, when you look at your schedule, you're like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not doing any of that stuff this afternoon because I'm already tired. Of course you are, because you've already worked a day's work, because you're like literally punishing yourself with your schedule. Okay, so some of the things that you can do to remedy that are making decisions firmly and sticking to them. Okay, so when somebody asks you a question, if you can, and you can if you want to, make a firm decision. If you're not ready to make a firm decision, table it until you are. Just say, I'm not going to think about that right now. I'll decide that on Thursday in this certain period of time. But what happens for most of us is we're kind of make a decision, and then we want to think about it, and then we second guess. Really uncomfortable and miserable. Okay, so making firm decisions is huge. Planning is really, really important. Planning your time, planning your schedule. I plan for months out in advance, and this blows people's minds. And sometimes people say, oh, that's so overwhelming to me. It's actually the opposite, because I know exactly when I'm going to get stuff done. I'm not sitting around going, when are we ever going to do that new website? When are we going to create a new course? When are we ever going to do that training? When am I going to do this design job and get it finished? When am I going to do the presentation? I know. If my team asks me, I'm like, I'm doing that on October 8th at 2 p.m. And I know exactly. And I don't have to think about it again until, maybe October 7th. Or if there's some prep work, I'll think about those on the days that I have slotted in my schedule. But it's so helpful to plan. Planning saves hours. I would say, and I've heard this from some of my other mentors that feel the same way, planning, the way I plan and the way I teach you to plan, probably saves at least 5 hours a week, if not 7 or 8. Y'all, that's a whole day. That's a whole work day that planning really adds time to your schedule. So making decisions, planning, saying no. You also could call this constraining. So many of us don't say no ever. And it's easy to not say no when you don't have your schedule dialed in, when you don't have it on paper, when you don't have it in a digital calendar, when you don't do my process of zero balance time blocking. You can go around all, sure, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds great. Amazing. Yes, count me in. Guess what? You're already overcommitted. You already don't have time for that thing. You're just able to pretend like you do in the moment and make people happy in the moment by saying yes, but make you miserable later when it comes time to do it, because you're going, when am I going to get this done? I'm already fully committed. And so by planning, by making decisions, and by saying no or constraining, I always know if I have time to do something, because I know what my schedule looks like. And if something comes along that I really, really want to do, great. I can still say yes to it, but I know when I'm saying yes to it, and I know what I was going to be doing during that time, and I have to find another spot in my life for that to happen, or I have to delegate it to someone, or I have to go back and say no to that thing. But we can't say yes all the time and think that it's just magically going to happen, because guess where we will be sitting when the time comes to do all those things? We'll be sitting in that mindset that says there's never enough time. I always have too much to do and not enough time to do it. And we will be creating that suffering, that overwhelm, that misery time and again. So if you feel like this is happening in your life and maybe even has been for years, this is exactly why. The solution is my zero balance time blocking. It is, it works. But you got to open your mind to it, okay? And here's one thing I want to leave you with before we go. Here's a way to think about opening your mind to this. I want you to think about your future self, okay? Because when we're not planning, when we're resisting a calendar, when we're buffering and procrastinating, when we're saying yes to things, all the things when we're not deciding, all that stuff, we're not thinking about our future self at all, right? We're thinking about right now, today, what feels good right now. It feels good to say yes to people because otherwise they're going to be mad at me. But our future self is the one that suffers every single time. And if you're not creating the results you want, if you're not creating the money you want in your business, if you're not creating the schedule, if you never have time with your kids or your spouse, and if you're like, when is this ever going to end? And you're just hoping that magically one day things change, you make enough money or you get far enough in your business that it'll change, which trust me, it won't. It takes you taking responsibility for it to change. But if you're in that mindset, you are not thinking about your future self. So I want you to consider, maybe it's to your future self that you want to think about, but consider one thing after hearing me talk about this for 30 minutes, because this is a big dang deal, y'all. This is the game changer in your life. What's one thing that you could start to do right now of all the things I talked about today? Like the buffering, the managing your thoughts, the making firm decisions, saying no, thinking of your future self. I gave you a lot of options, but I want you to just pick one, and I want you to think about practicing that one thing, okay? And if you want my help, to overhaul your schedule and your life and your business and create the results you really want, then get into Design You. Because we're working on your beliefs, including beliefs about time. We work on time management. We work on how to create money. We work on all these things that we can do with our brains. And it's just shocking how much power we really have when we can stop a lot of this behavior that we've talked about today. And time is just a beautiful example of how we do that. And I used it today on purpose because I would say that so many of us have this in common, that we feel like time is a problem and there's never enough and we're always behind. And I know you probably feel that way. I felt it for years. I occasionally still feel it now, but I know exactly what to do when that comes up. I know exactly what the problem is, and I know exactly how to fix it. And I want you to have that solution too. Okay, so let me know if you have questions. If you're on Instagram, DM me if you want more information about this. But please promise me you'll leave right now and go take 5 minutes and get out a piece of paper or a journal if you journal like me and make one decision about what you're going to do to improve your relationship with time today. Okay, thanks for letting me come in and teach you on this, what's in Arkansas, a rainy Wednesday morning on my husband's hotspot because I still have no internet. It was super fun. And you can tell I'm so passionate about this. I know this changed my life more than anything, and I want it to change yours too. Okay, so reach out. Let me know. If you're on Facebook, you can send me a message. We want to help you over in Design You. So we hope to see you there soon. Bye for now, everyone.